Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. I'll just switch this off. So this stream is going to be for SQHELL, a box I made for TryHackMe. Now, I probably shouldn't have done this because I've just manically put this together and I've been testing my own scripts and stuff, so I can show you some exploit examples. So it's a little bit rushed, so I do apologise for that, but we'll try and crack on. Hopefully things will go smoothly. Let's see what happens. I'll just put my screen onto share. Just to double check, and if anyone's watching, can you just let me know if the sound's okay? Oh, got a first question already. Yeah, the stream last week, I definitely did upload it to YouTube. If you have a look on my Twitter account, you'll see a link going back to it as well. Or if somebody can dig it out and put it on the chat, or I'll put it on at the end. That's no problem. Cool, sounds good. That's nice. So yeah, like I say, SQHELL. This was a box I developed for TryHackMe. It went out probably, I don't know, maybe about 5 or 6 weeks ago. So it's been played a lot already. So it's not like a massive spoiler me going through this at the moment. There's write-ups out there on the internet already. So the really brief introduction to it on the TryHackMe website. So give the machine a few minutes to boot. There's 5 flags to find with 5 different injection types in there. So that's it basically. So 5 flags, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it gives you a clue about the format there. So let's have a look at the machine itself. Okay, so let's just go back to the home page on here. So yeah, when you first start this, you'll just get my blog, which is it's a very basic website that I've just put together in Bootstrap. So I could show people these and give people the chance to learn these, from basic SQL injections to quite advanced SQL injections. There's some quite interesting ones in there. But there's also some other ones as well that I'm going to be saving as well for another stream, which will be, and another challenge as well. So you haven't quite finished with me with SQL injection yet. Okay, so first thing to do, like any like CTF or website or bug bounty, pen test, whichever, is just explore the site a little bit. Obviously on this page, there's not too much going on. You've got this login and register button. You've got these links here to admin. So second post by admin, first post by admin. So that's just telling you the person who actually posted this. And then you've got the blocks themselves with a read more link on there and some terms and conditions as well. So the thing that interests me the most is the login page. Let's have a look at that. Okay, so we're greeted with just a normal login page, username and password field. So I'd say in a normal CTF, if I hadn't explained that this was just going to be all about SQL injection, the first thing that people will try is putting default creds in there, admin password. They may even start up a brute force script as well, see if they can get in there. But because we know it's SQL injection, let's go for those payloads first. So the very most basic one that everybody always learns first is this. Oops. No, definitely don't want to power off the machine. People hear me and see me now? All right. So I think that one's for the bloopers reel. It's if anybody's got kids, you'll know how much they mess around with your equipment. So when you've got everything set up all nicely, it's been set up for about 2 hours, and then you look behind you after your computer's just switched off, and it's because somebody's unplugged it and it wasn't charging. So that makes it a little bit more interesting. Right, let's get back to it. So my computer has just restarted, so I'm going to have to do a few things to get back on track. So sorry about that, bear with me. This makes it a little bit more interesting. Also had a notes file as well, which I didn't save, so that's gone as well. Let's now you can watch me set up instead. Look. Okay, so let's pop Terminator on there. Split that. So this one is logging into the box itself. So with so you'll see a little bit behind the scenes there. Like you know, I work at TryHackMe. So all the boxes that we develop, we actually have an SSH certificate, so we can jump into those boxes on the default Ubuntu account. So yeah, anybody who develops like new boxes will know we have access to your stuff. So let's, oh yeah, that'll help. Let's actually connect to the VPN as well. Let's see. So I do apologise about this. It's definitely makes it a little bit more interesting. I'm just rapidly connecting to the VPN. So it looks like I'm back on the TryHackMe VPN. So that's good. I can get that. Let's log into the box. So I'm logging into the SSH on the box just so I can go through some of the code samples with you in a little bit. I've got to add my own identification script .ssh. THN. Perfect. That's in. Be root as well, just to make it easier. I've got some stuff saved. CTF. Okay. I think, fingers crossed, we're back in business. Okay, right. So we're on the login page. We've just gone through that, just saying about if it was a normal CTF, we'd try brute forces and whatnot. Because we know it's injection, let's go for that instead. So we're just going to put in the apostrophe or 1 equals 1, comma dash. And then password, you can put whatever you want in there. Okay, so you've logged in and you've got the flag. Now that works because the SQL query, the best thing to do actually, let me show you the SQL query on here. Okay, so it'll be in the controllers, probably in this. Login one. Okay, I'll just make that a little bit bigger. Okay, so this is what this page here in the background on the login. In the background, this is the SQL command that it's doing. So it's select star from users where username equals, and then that's the post. So that's what we're putting into the username and sending to the server. And then after that, we've got and password equals, and then the post again. And that's just basically looking for the fact that if it finds a matching row on there, then show you the user dashboard. So what we've basically done is rewritten that query. So instead of, like I say, accepting the username and password, we've just changed the query. Actually, what I'll do, let's just see which connection we're on there. So the database, so this is just the PDO connection in PHP, which connects the PHP script to the database running in the background. So that database is SQL2. Okay, so if we jump into MySQL, let's use that database. If we do show tables, this will tell us all the tables that are in this database, which is a grand total of 1. So if we do select star from users, I don't even know if I populated anything in here. Oh yeah, there we go. Admin, and I can't remember this password, can you? So something pretty random to go in there. So like I say, when we've changed our query, so previously it was select star from users where username equals and password equals that. Instead, well, if you remember what we entered in here was an apostrophe and then or 1 equals 1. So 1 equals 1 is basically the equivalent is true equals true, just something that always returns positive. So it'll always return like that first row. And then we added a semicolon on there to end the query, and then a 2 hyphens, which in SQL that means comment. So what that'll do is anything after the 2 hyphens, it'll just turn that into a comment instead. So the command that we actually end up running against the system is that. So select star from users where username equals, so I don't want the space there, that closes the search on username, or 1 equals 1. If we press enter, we pick up that first row, which then the PHP script says, right, I found a matching row in the database, you must be a user, and therefore why we get that dashboard login there. So that was your first flag on there. Let's go for the next one. Okay, so let's actually have a look at this post. So we've got post equals 2. Again, we've got a lot of junk text in there. And this one is post question mark ID equals 1. So we've basically got 2 posts on there. What we can do is, if we change that, okay, so we're changing this ID at the end, 3, 4, and we're just getting basically a message on there saying post not found. So one of the easiest ways that you can actually detect SQL injection on there is if we've got 2 IDs that we know definitely exist, or to be honest, even if you had 1. So what you could do is if you had, so let's do 3, and then post not found. If you did 3 minus 1, and then you've got the second post. So it's smart enough to compute the fact that you're doing 3 minus 1, and it's actually computing this on the SQL statement. So if you're getting results like this, where it's actually taking kind of computational maths into that query, then you actually know you do have an injection somewhere in there. It might be something really, you might not be able to get any further with it. It might be limited to a certain amount of characters. Whatever you're doing, you know you've got some kind of query on there. So we can start playing with that now. So again, let's add the apostrophe in. Okay, and this time we've actually got an error message back. So in your SQL injections, there's quite a few different groups of them. This one is called an error-based SQL. And this one, like as you can see on the screen, it's called error-based SQL for a reason, because it's actually producing an error. These are an absolute dream for us because it's telling us exactly what is wrong with our query in there. So obviously the fact that we've got an apostrophe in there, but it means we're closing that query. So again, let's jump into this code here. So let's have a look. Should databases. Okay, I think this will be SQL 1. This has got something about posts in it. Right. Oh, no. All right, on that. Let's try SQL. It's always more difficult to type when you've got people watching you. Oh, not even that either. Let's try 4. See, this is what I mean about rushing a stream. I should have check this first time. Okay, perfect. We're back in posts. So if we do select star from posts, and there we've got our garbage text and the 2 posts, and these are the fields. So I've just got ID, name, content, and then the user ID that the post is actually attached to. So this query at the top will be doing something like this. Select star from post where ID equals, and that'll be 1. Okay. So that's brought back the first statement. This is what I mean about adding the maths in there. So if we had 3, which we know full well doesn't bring back a result, but if we did 3 and then -1, there we go, we're bringing back a result. So again, that's proving that the maths works. It's been passed into the SQL, and we know where we're going from there. So now we can try and extend that query. Also, actually, just to note, in the SQL box on the hint, we did actually put, so instead of people having to run like SQL map or try and brute force tables and databases and just waste a lot of time, I actually did tell them that the flags will always be stored in a flag table under a column called flag, just to make it a bit easier for them. So on this one, let's go back to this one. So we're going to do the select star from post where ID equals, and then, so it's up here, so ID equals 0. This is where we're going to use the union command. Now the union command is a secondary SQL statement which can bring back results from other tables, but the results you bring back has to have the exact same amount of columns that are in your first query as well. So we'll see that, and we can see how to detect it and how to detect the amount of columns that we require as well. So we're going to do ID equals 0, and then union select, and then just 1. So this is what I was talking about. The uSelect statements have a different number of columns. So we've just brought back 1 column, which is just 1. So let's do 2, same message again. Let's do 3, and 1 more, because we knew from looking at the database before, because we can see inside with our writes, that it's actually got 4 columns in there. Now that we should get a result. So because we did just return and query 1, 2, 3, 4, that's why it's populated it here. So it's post 2, which will be the title, and 3, which should be the content on there. And what we can actually do is start changing these to actually query other tables on there. So if we did select, and then we could do the from command, and then we could choose another table to actually query from. And like I say, all the flags have been put in a flag table with a flag column, just to make it easy. So if we do flag, okay, we're getting a positive result. If we'd like misspelled that or put something in like admins, something like that, then we'd get SQL5 .admins doesn't exist. Okay, so let's move back to flag. Okay, and now we need the contents from that flags column. So let's choose number 3. If we change that to here, there we go. We've got the flag. So as that would look if you're actually on your SQL client. So we've basically just done this. So union select 1, 2, flag. Cannot spell tonight. Flag or from. And there we go. We managed to bring that information through. So that is flag number 2. Okay, the next one. Go for, all right, so this one again was a little bit more of an interesting one. I don't know whether to go for this one yet, actually. So this was flag number, so that was 2 flags that we've done. Yeah, let's go for this one. So there was a missing flag on here. A lot of people were struggling finding it, and we ended up having to give out the hint to really look into the terms and conditions. So people looked in there. We put some ridiculous terms and conditions in there saying that we own the soul of any visitors. We can't be blamed for any security breaches, thank goodness. And we log your IP address for analytics purposes. So this is probably the most interesting thing that you'll see on here. So what we can do, so as we know, like I say, it's logging the IP address. So that gives us a clue. Now, if there was some way that we could actually change our IP address, that was logging. So we should all know that that's pretty much impossible to alter our IP address. Especially certainly putting a SQL injection statement into your IP address. But thankfully, we've got headers. And a lot of the time on these websites, the headers that it'll accept, you can add things in there like X forwarded for. And X forwarded for is a header that you'd expect to come from a load balancer. So if you've got a web application and quite a lot of instances and you're really concerned about the uptime, is you can have the same application against on multiple servers, and then a load balancer sits in front of that server. It receives the connection, and then it passes it to like the first node, then the second node, then the third node. But each time it receives that connection, the web server will only ever see the IP address of the load balancer. And there's a lot of circumstances where we actually need to know the original IP address. So what the load balancer does, it gets the original IP address from the computer that's connected to it, and then it puts it in a header called the X forwarded for, and then passes that onto the web server. So this is the thing that we can have a play with. So let's let me just open this 1 second. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll use the curl command to issue a request to the website. So let's do 10.10. Let's do 54. So first things first, let's just make sure that is actually working. No, of course it's not, because I've done 95, not 92. There we go, perfect. That's curl request is just basically go into the HTTP server and grabbing the source and just sending it back. So on the curl request, we can actually add headers onto here. In there just to be clean. So this is where we add the X forwarded for header. So at this point, it usually looks something like this. Just put that in there. So this is the portion that would actually get sent to the web server, and then the web server would know. Obviously, in this example, I've used localhost, which wouldn't make any sense. It would be a proper public IPv4 address. So then the application itself, so let's controllers. I think I put it. Controller visits add. Okay, so back to controllers. Visits is where the visitors come in, and this is the code that I'm looking for. So like I said before, the PHP script is looking for this header of X forwarded for. When you send your headers, they actually get translated. Your hyphens get turned into underscores, and they put the HTTP underscore in front of it as well. So it knows it's like a non-standard header that I would expect. It's like an extra one on there. So this code basically says the IP address that's connecting to it is, if the X forwarded for header exists, then that's the IP address we're going to use. If not, we're just going to take the server variable of remote address, which is the standard IP address that comes with it. And then after that, it's going to first connect to the hits table and look up the IP address just to see if we've had any connections from it before. So we're doing the select star from hits, where IP equals, and then the IP address that we've just got from here. So this is where we can actually start inserting our own injections into. But with this one, there is no output on there, which makes it completely blind, which makes it very difficult for us to work with. Just okay, so instead of here, so we'll get rid of the X forwarded for apostrophe, which then that breaks that query over here where the IP, and again we'll use the union command. Oops. So union select. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Like I say, because this is completely blind, it's doing this all completely in the background. So how do we know whether we're doing a successful SQL injection if we're not getting any output whatsoever? And this is where the sleep command comes in. It's a really basic command. If we save that, if we just jump back into MySQL, we literally issue just select sleep. 5 seconds, literally just makes it sleep, just makes it pause for those whatever seconds you supply, which is 5 seconds in this instance, and then it just resumes carrying on. So we're going to actually inject that. So each time we send the request, and if it's successful, it'll actually force the web application to stop for the certain amount of seconds that we've specified. When it's stopped for the correct amount, when it's actually stopped for those amount of seconds, we know we've got a successful SQL injection query on there. So let's just do sleep 10. So let's say now we're doing the union and putting the sleep in there. Again, like the one before, we've got to guess the amount of columns that are actually in the table that's being looked up. So let's just put a semicolon, hyphen, just to make anything after that query and a comment. Okay, so that's return code straight away. So we know that sleep command hasn't worked on there. So let's try 2. That was a little bit slow, but certainly not the 10 seconds that was specified. Try 3. Okay, it's looking a lot more promising now. This has definitely stalled it. So now we know we've got a successful SQL injection and it's got sleep on there. There we go. Now it's returned after those 10 seconds. So at this point, let's actually make that 3 seconds just so we're not stalling it so many times. We can actually start expanding on this union comment. So if we did something like, so we can start actually looking into correct tables and finding any correct tables that are on there. So let's do from, and then let's just do test. So that's just thrown code straight back at us. So we know that SQL injection hasn't worked. There isn't a table called test on there. So let's try trusty flag. Brilliant. Getting that 3 second stall. And then we know that that's working. So we can further interrogate this database now by adding the where query into the SQL statement. So we've got select and then just kind of some garbage columns from flag where, and then we can interrogate the columns on there. So we know there's a flag column. So where flag equals, and now this is the tricky part. What does it equal? How do we know it equals anything? So if we were to do flag equals, well, obviously that wasn't worked. We haven't returned any successful results. So that sleep command isn't issued. So instead of the equals, if we try like instead, put a percent sign in there. The percent sign is wildcard in SQL. So this query will basically return anything in the column. So if we hit enter, hopefully this should stall for a couple of seconds. Perfect. So we know that's right. You might be asking me, why is this useful at the moment? I'll show you. So we know that all the flags have been starting with T. So THM for TryHackMe. So if we were to put a T in there, so this is basically saying select from the flag table where the flag column is like anything that starts with the capital letter T. So if the successful finds a row, we'll get that sleep for 3 seconds. Perfect, it's sleeping. And just a little bit of a proof of concept, let's change that to Z. Okay, return straight away, so we definitely know it's not Z. Okay, now this is the point where we'd actually have to iterate through every character in there. So we'll do something like TA. No, that's not what worked. Like I said before, they all start with THM, so TH. Awesome, we've got the pause on there. Okay, so I think you're getting the idea now that we can start adding characters to it, but we'd have to cycle through all of them, and those flags are pretty huge. So this is the part where we'd need automation. A lot of people will jump onto that SQL map at this stage, which is, you know, that's fine. It's a good shout. but it doesn't teach you exactly what's going on in there. So I put up a little script for myself. I just coded it quickly in PHP because I thought that would be the fastest thing that we can do it in. But I'll just quickly explain what's going on. So what I'm doing here is I've got an array merge, and range is just basically a command which returns an array back from with a range of characters that you want in there. So this range starts at 0 and ends in 9, so it'll return back all the characters between 0 and 9, and again all the characters between A and Z, and then some extra characters on there like the braces and the double colon as well, the colon as well, just so we, because that is a break that's in the flags. So just close that. Okay, then we've got a for loop on here, which means this block of code will be executed 40 times. It'll go over it because we don't know the exact length of the flag. It just makes that a little bit easier. And then this for each goes through every character, like I explained up here, that's in that merge. I can just a bit bigger so you can see. And again, we've got a curl command in here, which is doing exactly what we were doing on the command line before. It's doing a curl request, it's changing the X forwarded for, it's querying in the database for that first character. Then once it's found the first character, it'll move on to the second, third, fourth, and so on, and then keep on going through it. And just before it does that command, importantly, actually, you get the Unix timestamp at the current time. It does the curl command. That after it, you do the Unix timestamp again. Then you deduct the end Unix timestamp by the start Unix timestamp, and that will give you the amount of time it took in seconds to process the command. So that means, which is this part here, so then we're interested in anything that has taken over 2 seconds, because that means the SQL injection has worked, and we've got that sleep command running. Okay, so if we come out of there, I think that's everything. So yeah, it'll echo it out what it's found. It'll add it onto the flag variable, the character, and it'll keep on building it up and adding to it. Then at the end, it'll print out the whole thing. So fingers crossed, let's save that. Okay, so this in the background. Oh, sorry, that's what I should have noticed before, is in the curl command that I'm actually issuing in the system command, I've done the -s flag, and that makes it silent, so you don't get any of the normal output. So you can see actually now it's starting to find the characters. So it's going through it in all right time. We'll check back to this one in a little minute. Okay, so you get the idea of that. It's going through each of those individual characters. Until it builds it all up. So sorry guys, I've been neglecting that. Right, this kind of just going to repeat. Yeah, I do a mixture of scripts, to be honest. I'll do a bit of bash scripts, especially if I'm uploading something to GitHub, so I don't get a lot of hate. But the day-to-day, because I've done PHP development for about 20 years, it's so much easier just to quickly just smash out a PHP script just to get the results I want. If it's something that I'm going to throw away later, then absolutely fine. But do you know what? It's rapid. It actually runs faster. You can look this up. It actually runs faster than Python as well on the command line. So it's a nice little thing to use there. So let's keep that running. So that's going to be getting that flag. Let's move back to the home page. Okay, let's get another flag. So register, we haven't had a look at register yet. So again, we've got a form on here, username, password, confirm password, standard fields. Okay, so let's start filling in. So let's go for admin again. Okay, so we've got a username already taken. So how's it doing that? We're typing into it and it seems to know. So let's put another character, username available. So in the background somewhere, it's obviously posting that result somewhere, and it says whether the username is taken or not taken. So if we open up Inspector, open up our network tab, we'll actually be able to see that in action. Okay, so there we go. I've pressed an extra character, and then it's done a request in the background here. So if we open up the new tab, here it is. So that's the username we're checking, and we just get this JSON string back, and that just basically tells us whether the username that we've requested, whether it's available to register or not. So because I've put something random in, it's coming back with true, so it's saying all's good, you can use that username to register. Okay, so if we change that to admin, obviously we're getting the false. We're heading on to Boolean-based SQL injection. So unlike our other injections, not including the sleep, the time-based one that we're doing at the moment in the background, the other ones will actually return the results straight to the page. On a Boolean one, all it's basically doing is marking something to on or off, true or false, 1 or 0, whatever you want to call it. So in our instance, it is that true or false. So on a successful query, we'll get those results back. So let's try exploiting this SQL injection. So again, let's put a here, and we'll go back to our. Should we go back to our trusty union command as well? So union select 1, and then semicolon to close it off, and 2 hyphens to comment. Okay, so this is saying available true. Okay, and available true, like I was saying before, that means it hasn't found any results in the database whatsoever. But because we've issued a union command, it should be finding a result because we're selecting 1 here. So what's happening is it's actually causing an error inside the application because it hasn't got the correct amount of columns on there like we did with the other union ones. So if we build this out, and we'll put 2, true again. So what we really want is to return a false message, which we've got now. So now we know that it's 3 columns long, the table that it's interrogating to begin with. Okay. Oh, just a note. There we go. That's finished in the background. It's got all those queries on there. So that's another one done. So that's number 3, I think, that one. Okay, so going back to here, again, now we can start looking for tables as well. So like I say, any successful queries that come back, so if we find a table that actually exists, the available should go to false because we're returning a row of data. So if we do from and then garbage, available true, like I say, because it's not returning a row back because that isn't a valid SQL command because that table doesn't exist. So we're getting a false. So this is where, again, we can go back to our trusty flag table. Okay, where flag equals false, so we're getting a false because that is a valid SQL statement. And then again, where flag equals, okay, and we're going back to the exact same issue we were having with the time-based SQL. The fact it's completely blind, all we're getting is a true or false back. So how do we know what's actually in there? And again, this is where we can utilize this like command to get those results back. So if we do like, oops, close that off, close the command, close the comment. Okay, could be back false because it's, we've got a result in there. So this is where it gets complicated with Unicode. Okay, so and we've changed that to any flags that begin with T to return a row back, and we've got that false. So if we were to change that for any results that begin with Z, do that, again, it's going to true. So unfortunately, I didn't really have time to knock up a script for this. We probably don't have time to do it at the moment, but it'd be very much like, I can do one tomorrow and post it on there if people are interested, just let me know. But it'd be very similar to this, where you've got all your characters, and instead of checking for the time, instead it'll check the results that are being sent back. So what would actually be looking for? I wonder if we could do it quickly. Okay, what's that? So amount of time. Okay, so I think I might start doing this one before. So it's, okay, so yeah, this was one I did actually start trying before. Let's just extend it with what I've just found. What I might actually do as well is I might actually change this to file get content, because we are interested in what's being returned from here. So let's do file get content, paste that in. Just need to adjust this so it actually works properly as well. So this is the so because everything's URL encoded, it's a bit of a nightmare to see. But let's bear with me. So what the flag? So whatever it's currently found, the first time it'll just be 0, and the character that it's on. Okay. If this all goes completely wrong, I might skip this and put another result out a little bit later. What we'll do, let's just echo this out. Don't need any, oops, don't need that, that, that. We'll keep these two in here. That'll be useful, but we'll just comment them out for the moment. So I just want to check this thing actually works. So fingers crossed, let's see what happens. Okay, available, true. Okay, so like I say, this is going in a big cycle all the way through it, and it's posting out the results. So what we actually want is the one, I actually just stopped at the wrong time. So available equals false. So that would have been the first character on there. So let's just go back into the script. There's a bit of live coding going on. So let's assign that to result. So let's do if string contains, I forget whether it's the wrong way around or not. So that's false. We'll know straight away if I've got this the wrong way around, because it'll come back as everything working. Okay, so that's basically, assigning the file get contents, which is basically goes out on the web, you request that page, and the contents of it is saved to result. Then we're having a look at the result, and if it contains the word false, that's the one that we want, it's going to echo the flag the character that we've just found, and also save it to the flag. So fingers crossed, this might not work, like I say, because I might have got it the wrong way around. How did I go? Oh, there we go. I need another. Thought I did this for a job. Perfect. So THM. Nice. Okay. I was going to skip that. I was quite glad I actually did it, and then you can see it all in action doing it. So again, let's close that one off. So that one's flagged number 4. It's just in process at the moment building. And let's go back to an interesting one. Okay, so the last thing that we've got on here to actually interact with is who the post is by. So we've got this user link, ID equals 1. So we could have a mess around with that, see if there's any 2. No, we've got no 2s on there. So it's just one user under admin. Okay, so can't find user. Again, we can try some maths on there as well. So let's do 2 minus 1. Brilliant. Okay, 2 minus 1. Again, like I said before, computational maths is actually working in the background there. So we know that there is some kind of SQL injection going on. So again, let's break out that union command. So select 1. So union select on top 1, and then off the command, make everything after a comment. Okay, can't find the user, so that's fine. So we're getting an error on there because it can't find the user, but we know that's just because we're not returning the correct amount of columns. So let's move it up again to same thing. 3, perfect. Okay. So at this stage, you might be asking, what is the difference? So we've done a union-based SQL injection before. This is where it gets interesting. So people who've stuck by some of my challenges in the past will know this horrendous thing called SQL Inception. And what it basically is your first query that you're doing with the SQL injection. There's actually nothing that interesting in there. What we're actually interested in is the query that happens after it using the results from the first one. So sorry, let's just go back to that other one. That one's finished now, so that one's done. Probably get rid of that. So let's have a look at the code for this website. Okay, so we want the block, which is what I'm using. So here we go. Cool. So yeah, this is where we're injecting. This is the line we're injecting through at the moment, which is the select star from users where ID equals and the get variable of ID. Okay, so we've done that part. We're returning information, and now this is the part where we can actually start getting information back. So the obvious thing to think is, oh, it's just another union-based injection. Let's do the from flag. Okay, can't find user from flagged. Okay, so this isn't returning any results. And this is because the flags table isn't actually accessible by this database user. So if we go back to the connection information that this one's using, so con, which is short for connection, is being assigned here, and this is being assigned to the MySQL user 4. So when I set this up, user 4, I made sure they didn't actually have any permissions to that flags table. So a lot of people were getting stuck on this one. They're going a bit crazy because they were breaking out SQL map on there. They were mapping every table that that user had access to, and they just couldn't find the flag anywhere. So this is where it gets really interesting. So underneath here, we can see another SQL statement. And that SQL statement is being run on the data that is being returned from the first one. So that select star from users where ID equals. So what might be useful is let's quickly break out this. Actually, okay, so we're in SQL 4, so I just need to keep track of the tables that we're in for here. Okay, so nice. Well, bases is SQL 4. Tables. So interestingly, we can see the flag table, but that's because we're logged in as a root user. If we'd logged in with the credentials of user 4, that wouldn't be there whatsoever. All you'd have is the users table. That's the only thing that we'd actually have access to. So let's so select star from users. And then we've got our, again, our users table and username admin on there. So at the moment, so when we're doing our query, so we're doing 0 and then union select 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a successful query because there's no ID number called 0 in this table, but then using the union, we are creating our own information and bringing that back. So ID gets mapped to 1, username gets mapped to 2, and the password gets mapped to 3. So going back to our code, too far. Sorry, yeah, there we go. Okay, so this second query is being used on the information that's returned from the column ID. So this is this first column here that we've got 2. All that's basically doing is finding all the posts that have been made by that user ID. So if we change user ID 1 here to maybe 2, we'll see that we've got no post in here. And if we change it back to 1 again, because the posts have been made by user ID 1, we've got those results. So interestingly, what we can do is this is where SQL Inception happens. So basically it's SQL Injection within SQL Injection. So if on here, so it might be easier. Okay, so like I say, this next query that's been called, where we've got select users from where ID equals, so that's the information we're getting, then the post one. Okay, this is what we're passing to it. So we're going to pass it as 0, and then union select 1. Okay, so we haven't got any results on that. So let's try select 2. No, that's not worked. Let's try 3. And just basically, again, we've got to keep on iterating through here until we've got the correct amount of columns. Okay, perfect. Now we're finding posts. So this query in here is being run on this second one. So again, we can expand this out. So we've got 4 and then from, and then hopefully we've got access to the flag table this time. Let's do from flag. Awesome. We've got that 2 still there, which means it was a successful inception query. Because if we change this to flags, it's gone. So let's change it back to flag again, and then change the second value. Flag, and there we go. We've got the query. So that is SQL Inception in a nutshell. So you can see kind of both sides of it. I don't think I've really shared much source code with anyone before on that one. It's quite an interesting concept that I came up with for the Hacky Holidays CTF. So a few people are traumatized by that experience. It certainly tested a few people. But in Hacky Holidays, we actually did the inception, and then that went on to, the results that came from there went on to an SSRF, which then went on to content discovery via HTTP status codes. A lot of crazy stuff had to go on for Hacky Holidays. So that is it, basically. Yep, those are all the flags. We've found everything in there, and that's SQL completed. I suppose the only thing to know is usually I go through any of the issues and any of the potential pitfalls and like unintentional solves that could have happened. So obviously one of the big ones is if you've got SQL injection, why not just explore the rest of the database? So this is when I was really careful, and each one of those injection points had their own MySQL user. And using the grants privilege, we could actually decide what access those individual users have. So we could really just make sure they only had access to either this database or this table on the database. Like this one is the last example. The user didn't have access to the flags one, so it couldn't see it, just so we can control the privileges and somebody can't just do the first SQL injection and get everything out of there, then it's game over. So I think that was pretty much the only potential pitfall in the application. And yeah, that's the end of it. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If anyone wants to ask any questions, anyone got anything either SQL related or just anything really, anything about CTF development or any questions whatsoever, now is the time. Or you can hit me up later on Twitter, send me a DM or whatever, and we can chat things through. But I'm thinking that's it. Seems pretty quiet on chat. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. Come and listen to me ramble for an hour. I appreciate it. If you've come late to this or want to review anything over again, which I've done in here, then I'll be putting this on the YouTube channel. Hopefully tonight it should get on there. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Again, you can view my challenges. I've got my dedicated website, ctfchallenge.com, which has got some really interesting web app challenges. Hacker 101, which I've had the privilege to build challenges for, the latest one being RTFM, which is an API web app hacking challenge, and HackerOne. I frequently do CTFs and events for them, and obviously TryHackMe, which is my full-time job, and all the content that I build for them. So make sure you check out those websites for all my work. And again, thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully we'll make a regular thing out of this and might turn it into every Tuesday. Thanks everyone. Good night.